Well, hello there, guys. It's new DM Ariel again, coming back at you from beautiful Northern California, and it's the end of the week. We are doing D&D news updates on a Friday afternoon because I just went on vacation for a couple weeks, and so I'm gonna have some time to make some more of these videos and content. Also just got back from the hobby store again. I was lucky enough to get a pretty healthy tax return this month, so I spent a little bit on picked up a couple of more 5e books, 5e supplements, and at some point I'm going to complete my review. Well, not review, but my video detailing why I picked up some of the supplements that I did versus some other ones, why I have some adventures, um, 5e adventures rather than some of the other ones that are have been currently published. One of the books I picked up, and it took me a long time, was to deliberate whether I should get this book is the Rising from the Last War. This book's been out for a while, several years now, and it is a campaign setting for Eberron. And if you know me, you know that I love Dungeons and Dragons Online, and the original setting for the D&D DDO game, which I plan to play over the last couple of weeks when I'm off work, again, was back in 2006 when it was first put out, or the game first came out. It was the original setting was an Eberron campaign setting. So I really like Eberron. Ever since then, I've been interested in the Eberron setting. I have a book for third edition in Eberron and a fourth edition, the Player's Guide, which I've also talked about. So I wasn't sure if I should pick up the fifth edition one because, just I don't know if there's a lot of the lore repeated or a lot of the lore was restated. But I'm glad I did because there's actually some good material in this book, including a 5D, a short 5e adventure set in the Eberron campaign. And it's got some really interesting, it goes really more in depth into the setting. So even though I'm familiar with the races, it is a good source to have for fifth edition. And it completes my cycle of Eberron books because Eberron started with third edition. So I have third edition Races of Eberron. I got a fourth edition Player's Guide, and I just picked up that 5e Rising from the Last War. And the other book I recently picked up was another campaign setting. This one, The Guild Master's Guide to Ravnica. And I haven't really talked much about any of the crossover campaign books or adventure books with that Wizards of the Coast has put out over the last couple of years in collaboration with the Magic the Gathering. And this is that was their first source book. It's been out also a couple of years, and they have another one that's that has to do with more with Greek mythology, and it's heavily influenced on that. So it's a really cool campaign setting. I don't have that one yet. I don't know if I'm gonna pick it up. I'm not so huge on Magic the Gathering where I play it all the time. Like I definitely played way more D&D than Magic, but I don't know if I like this one. Maybe in the next couple of months I can pick up the second one. And the third Magic related product that has come out by Wizards of the Coast is the Strixhaven. Um, it's called Strixhaven, and it's basically an adventure. I really don't have a whole lot of interest in that one. I might play it, but I don't really think I'll pick up the source material. It's basically, the way I see it is kind of like more towards appeasing both the Magic the Gathering crowd as well as some of this millennials or people that are into like Harry Potter and those type of fictions, because it's all about how you go to a wizard school and you're learning how to you take classes in magic and take classes to become a wizard. It's like similar to Harry Potter, wizard schools, and that kind of vibe. I'm really not into that whole motif or that whole that type of adventuring. So I may or may not. I mean, I would sit down and play it, but I don't think that I would run a game as a DM, or definitely would not pick up that setting. But never say never. Maybe one day I'll play it and I'll enjoy it. So those are some of the couple of the source books that I picked up recently, and the rest of the time I think we're going to hit the news for the end of the week and see what is new in the world of Dungeons and Dragons through some of these recent news articles that have come out regarding our favorite role playing game. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention was that there was an a book that I picked up last week. It's been out for a while, 2019, I think, and it is this book um, called Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus, and it's a book all about the nine hells, um, and I really enjoy the blood war setting and the devils and the whole conflict between if you've been playing for Dungeons and Dragons for a long time like I have, even you're even in previous editions you know all about the conflict between the devils of the nine hells and the demons, which are in a constant conflict against each other. This is actually detailed. The lore of that is actually detailed quite well in I think Volo's Guide, or one of the monster books. I'm pretty sure it was Volo's Guide or Tome of Foes, one of those setting rather one of those supplement books that talks about the different lores of the game lore. And I don't know, I've always enjoyed that specific conflict. I think the devils are great for role playing, and the hierarchy of the different levels of hell in Dungeons and Dragons is really well done and really well put together. Um, I haven't played this adventure yet. It's been out for a while, but from what I've read and seen, for people who have played it and reviewed it, the knock on it is that it's called Baldur's Gate, but the Baldur's Gate part of it isn't so great because I guess marketing of Wizards of the Coast was coming up with they were coming up with the Baldur's Gate video game, and they just sort of slapped it there at the last minute. It's what I heard or read, and so it's sort of tacked on. But I think if you're a creative DM, you don't even have to go into the Baldur. You don't have your PCs don't have to bother too much with Baldur's Gate or traveling through that portion of the world. You can just send them directly into the thick of it. I think Avernus is like the third level. It's one of the nine levels of hell. I forget which one. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. But it's basically one of the different levels of hell. And the back of the book talks about it. Says, "Do you have what it takes to turn infernal war machines and nefarious contracts against the archdevil Zariel and her diabolical legions? Can you find your way home safely when pitted against the infinite evils of the nine hells?" So very good. A lot of flavor and a lot of opportunities for role play. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, I don't know if you can see this, but dice, new dice. Um, I don't I don't ever have to buy dice anymore because fortunately for me, our game store has a policy or a deal where if you buy any of the supplements or source books or materials for D&D, you will get a free set of dice every time. And I have so many with the different types of colors and designs. I probably don't ever have to give dice the rest of my life, but it's always good to have dice around your game table. So I was happy about that. Enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump into the news portion of um, of this video, and just randomly picked up different articles that with new D&D news that came out this week. This one is by Christian Hoffer, and it's from comicbook.com, put out April 7th, which was yesterday. Dungeons and Dragons will explore using hit dice in new ways in coming months. Um, I don't know. I wish sometimes I wish they would just stop tweaking the game because they keep changing things all the time. It's hard to keep up with. But let's see what this is all about. The principal rules designer for Dungeons and Dragons is hinting that future rules updates will see hit dice used in different ways. Last week, Wizards of the Coast posted a new Sage Advice video for Dungeons and Dragons in which the host Todd Kenreck discussed various design elements seen in the recently released Heroes of Krim Unearthed Arcana playtest, which is interesting because Kryn is is a Dragonlance setting. So this tells me that maybe we're getting Dragonlance pretty soon, which would be very exciting. Unearthed Arcana, for those who are not familiar with it, it's the name of a very famous supplement dating back to first edition, and I think it was reprinted in the third edition. But it's basically the name that Wizards of the Coast has adopted for whenever they have a playtest before the product hits the shelves or before they put out a new book or a new supplement or a new adventure series. So near the end of the video, Crawford and Kenrick discuss the new ways proficiency bonuses have been used in recent rulebooks, starting with the 2020 release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Crawford noted that one of the design goals for that book was to find new ways to use existing elements of the game. So he goes to talk about how they were trying to embrace new uses for proficiency bonuses. There is a link to the video, but I'm not really going to click on that. Um, just basically summarizing that Crawford also discussed the return of feat trees, noting that there was room to explore in that design feature. I don't know what they're really talking about when they talk about feat trees because I haven't really played 5e that deeply or explore that part of it. All I know about feats, and I think this is what they mean or what they're talking about, is that when depending on the different class that you play, and during your level progression, instead of during your level progression in 5e, you get a different opportunities as you level up to increase your stats. So if you have like a bonus on your strength, or you have a set ability score for strength or for dexterity or whatever the ability is, you can, as when you level up, you get an opportunity. A lot of the game gives you the system gives you an opportunity to increase those stats. But also, alternatively, you also get an opportunity to, instead of increasing the stats, to pick a feat from a long list of feats uh, that are delineated for your class. So Crawford said it was unlikely that complex feat trees would come back, saying that they've received negative feedback about feat trees stacking too high. He also discussed the new background design seen in recent months, stating that the new background with a feat design was intended to make backgrounds more meaningful instead of disappearing into the background. As of now, special backgrounds were limited to setting specific backgrounds, which will likely continue, which is interesting. I think every time they put out um, a different setting, then they add some backgrounds, I think, to entice people to buy the setting. I think the same thing sounds like the same thing is going to happen with Dragonlance or whatever new setting they're gonna come up with. Here's an article by the Gamer. And he talks about how to get the most out of divination magic. Everything you need to know to effectively use divination magic on Dungeons and Dragons by Paul DeSalvo. This was published a couple days ago. Um, and let's see what it's all about. Spellcasters are an integral feature of Dungeons and Dragons and are characters able to help their party through the use of magic. When playing a spellcaster, players can gain a wide range of spells of their choice that can offer a wide range of incredible abilities that can be used in and out of combat. By and large, some of the most useful types of spells are often overlooked by new players are divination spells. Some of the most overlooked spells are divination. So we're going to explore the school of divination magic and explain how to get most out of some of its best spells. What is divination magic? They ask. The school of divination is made up of effects that can provide a, a player with various forms of information. Low-level examples of divination magic include detect magic, comprehend languages, and identify, each of which are great means of obtaining information in a given scenario. Now, the thing with the schools of magic in this specific edition is that I don't, and maybe somebody that has been playing longer, 5 weeks, can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the different schools, other than categorizing the spells for spellcasters in different schools and describing their effect, is all for flavor. It doesn't really have any game mechanic that will be meaningful. For example, in second edition, and I've talked about this before, in second edition there were some limitations of the schools of magic that and the spells that you could utilize depending there was like an opposition. For example, if you had spells, or if you were a spellcaster that used like a priest, which is another name for cleric, or like a wizard that used or magic user, I guess we used to call him back then. If you were a magic user and you had a range of spells from a specific school, there was an opposition school, and you couldn't use the spells from that opposition school. But I don't think that's the same for the new editions of the game. So then they go and discuss specific spells, right? So you have augury, second level divination spell available to clerics, druids, and wizards, and they describe that rather in depth. Divination itself, there's a cool shot from the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything source book. A fourth level divination ritual available to clerics, druids, and wizards. Divination is essentially the step up from augury, and it describes that. Commune. Commune is a stellar fifth level ritual, normally exclusive to the cleric class. Contact other plane. Easily the most flexible divination spell of this nature. While Contact Other Plane doesn't have the same recast clause as the previously mentioned options, it comes with an alternate risk. A fifth level ritual available to warlocks and wizards. As the spell is cast, its caster must succeed in a DC 15 intelligence saving throw or sustain psychic damage and suffer the terrible drawback of not being able to take actions, not being able to understand what other creatures say, not being able to read, and only being capable of speaking in gibberish. That's kind of cool. One of the things I didn't really like about D&D 5th edition at first is I didn't seem to have any negative repercussions to spellcasting. Sometimes it seems like, at least in my table, the spells always go off. So there's no space fade. I talked about this before, where there's no chance of spell failure unless somebody's concentration is broken. But the DM, at least in our group, never really takes that into consideration. And then there's a second part, things you should never do as a DM. So it's a pretty good guide for the different type of spells, and pretty recent too. Everything you need to know to use divination magic on Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, let's finish up our survey of the news with this article by the Gamer. Dungeons and Dragons: The Best Adventures in 3.5. These adventures from D&D 3.5 have aged perfectly, and this was published 3 days ago, which is really good because I'm thinking of doing an online, going back and playing online with a couple of friends who are really into 3.5, so I can take a break from 5th edition. If you ask a hardcore D&D fan which edition is best, you're almost always going to get 3.5 as the answer. Even with the immense popularity and mass appeal of 5th edition, many D&D fans can't seem to let 3.5 go. That's for sure. I know a lot of 3.5 enthusiasts even 20 years later. Not only did 3.5 bring us one of D&D's best settings ever on, but it also brought us adventures both new and old that are still fantastic today. So I guess this whole article is sort of like a survey of what they think are some really good adventures in 3.5 that you can still pick up today. Starting with Barrow, the Forgotten King. I want to see how many of these I've heard of or played. Not familiar with that one. Expedition to the Ruins of Greyhawk. I do know about Greyhawk because it's an older setting. Obviously, dating back to 1st edition, Expedition to the Ruins of Greyhawk is one of the most popular adventure modules released in the 3.5 era. It's a fairly straightforward fantasy adventure and setting involving your brand of heroes getting recruited by an old wizard to slay an evil demigod in the decrepit Castle Greyhawk. That sounds pretty cool. Where the adventure shines is in how much is packed into those old and storied remains. It's a castle with as many booby traps as it has hidden secrets and characters with tales to tell. All right, and then we have White Plume Mountain, which is very famous, dating back to the 1st edition. And I'm sure this is a reskin of that for 3rd. Both White Plume Mountain and the following entry, Tomb of Horrors, are not truly 3.5 original adventures. Rather, they are reworks of classic D&D adventures for the 2nd edition of the game, most commonly known as AD&D. If you like the idea of classic Gygax D&D adventures paired with the 3.5 rules, then these adventures I made for you. And not only did they reprinting for 3.5, but I know that Tomb of Horrors has been redone for 5th edition. There's a whole 5e translation by not by Wizards of the Coast, but by the guys that make the Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is the company that does that RPG. Um, and then and also in Wizards of the Coast, in one of their supplements of a book that has individual, like 17 or 16 or 17 solo adventures. So just reprinting some of these classic adventures. So here we go. The Tomb of Horrors exist in interesting contrast to White Blue Mountain. While both are second edition adventures retooled for 3.5, they play out very differently. The Tomb of Horrors is second edition. I thought it was first edition. Um, Pretty sure it's a first edition adventure. This is because of the respective tone of each adventure. White Plume Mountain has more of a whimsical and most cliched fantasy setting to it, while Tomb of Horrors is as dark and troubled in its setting as it is painfully difficult. Don't be surprised if your party becomes yet another group to wander into Tomb of Horrors seeking treasure only to never return. And this is true. It was originally put together by Gary Gygax as a challenge. It was one of those tournament type dungeons where the DM was trying to make it as hard as possible for players to get through the survive the dungeon. So that's why it's so hard. Shadows of the Last War. Here we go. This has Eberron written all over it, and I'm all about Eberron, as I mentioned earlier. Shadows of the Last War has the grand distinction of being the very first story Wizards of the Coast ever published within the world of Eberron. Right out of the gate, this adventure proves why Eberron is heralded as one of the greatest D&D settings of all time, despite being so recent. Okay, okay. And then Expedition to Castle Ravenloft. Curse of Strahd is widely considered as one of the greatest adventures of 5th edition, with Ravenloft in addition being hailed as one of the greatest D&D settings. If you played COS, Curse of Strahd, and are interested in a similar gritty vampire-filled adventure on the 3.5 mechanics, then you're in luck. I have not played 5th edition Curse of Strahd, believe it or not, because so many people were running it, and it was too popular, and it's a very niche. Ravenloft is basically gothic horror, and so although I've heard Curse of Strahd is really good, and that adventure covers a lot of itches. I should say covers a lot of people's uh, predilections and scratches a lot of people's itches in terms of what they want in an adventure. Um, Expedition to Castle Ravenloft is World Wizard of the Coast shot at Red Ravenloft's story from this era. This is actually the first follow-up they ever did to the classic Ravenloft story from first edition, and it's still considered by many to be the most definitive adventure within the setting. I'm sure a lot of people love it because there's a lot of Ravenloft fans there. Red Hand of Doom, and it has that 3.5 motif, 3.5 artwork that I love. The concept of Red Hand of Doom is simple but effective and relentlessly lethal. You and your adventurers gain an entire militia. A warlord named Ozarkul is leading an army numbering in the tens of thousands of goblins towards the Elixir Vale. If no one opposes them before they reach the major cities of the human lands, the walls will surely fall and everything will be razed and ashes. Razed and in ashes. Yeah, that sounds like I would be right up my alley. I'm wondering what number 1 is now. Number 2 is the Expedition to the Demon Web Pits. Now this looks like it's obviously they have lulls, so it's obviously a drow centric adventure, which a lot of people like to drow. Expedition to the Demon Web Pits is one of the more horror-centric adventures of the 3.5 era, along with the aforementioned Ravenloft story. Especially if you have a fear of insects and all these things that are creepy crawly, this adventure will have moments that are tough for you to stomach. It centers around taking down the demon queen of spiders, Lols, before she can enact her horrifying plans. And she has plenty of flesh-eating pestilence at her command to try and stop you. Definitely an adventure worth playing if you enjoy this type of monster settings. They're not my favorite, but I do like the draw. I do like their backstory and how they're completely unique in terms of elves as opposed to other types of elves. So I dig it. And the number 1, I don't know if these are in order of the best and the greatest, but the number 1 is Eyes of the Lich Queen, which I honestly have never heard of. Eyes of the Lich Queen is the final Eberron-based adventure published during 3.5 era. I should know it because I like Eberron, but I don't. They made so many in 3.5 that I'm not familiar with all of them. This one is by far the by far the meatiest, with an adventure that will see you party both exploring and possibly running for your lives through many of Eberron's fantastic locales. So there you have it. Some of the best adventures for 3.5. If people are still playing, I know that our group is still playing some 3.5 adventures. I would definitely, I think, would get into playing the Castle Ravenloft one. I definitely like some of the Eberron ones. And not sure about Two More Horrors. I have the first edition one. It's too hard. Um, and yeah, so those are the ones they recommend. Okay, guys, so that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed this type of content and this latest video, recapping some of the news from Wizards of the Coast and from Dungeons and Dragons, the different um, uh, types of articles and the different items that people are writing about and thinking about on our favorite tabletop gaming and the hobby. If you like this type of video, go ahead and like and subscribe and help the channel grow. And I'll continue to make more. Definitely try to roll some of these out this next couple of weeks that I'm on vacation from work. And if you would like to help you don't have to, but if you would like to help the channel grow, I do have a Patreon set up, and I'll leave put the description on the link on the description for this video if you want to go ahead and become a patron. That would be a great way for you to help the channel grow and help us out putting together more content. So until next time, this has been new DM Ariel with the D&D news of the week. Um, and hopefully things will go well for you. And may the rolls be with you.